Hey everybody, welcome to Mistakes Were Made. We are back at the dining room table and we are going to talk about where things landed for September. Now, one thing that I have decided as far as the channel is concerned is to commit to doing at least a monthly update. Whether I will end up breaking that out into an update for each pay period, I haven't quite landed on a decision there, but at the bare minimum, I will do a monthly update. If I do go the route of updating each pay period, then of course I won't do the monthly update because that information will be kind of done especially during the second pay period item video. So it's been a little while since I've done a finance version of a video, so bear with me. Things have settled down. So what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about kind of where things are non-financially, and then we'll get into the numbers. So we, as you may know, if you did watch the most recent video, finally got the long-term goal of getting the BlackBerry mess cleared out, taken care of. But if you did see the video, then you know we are not done with that back area by a long shot. There's so much that still needs to be done. The downside is, unfortunately, due to how long it took us to get to this point, means that we are now coming up against fall and winter weather. It has been fairly rainy today, as an example, and we've had some rain earlier, and so working back there is going to be something of a pain in the butt. Additionally, there are still like big branches and things that need to be handled, and we need to get a wood chipper for some of that. Unfortunately, at least for most of the ones that I have been looking at, using, wet wood and material and things like that is not recommended because it will gum up the works. So there is a possibility that we've kind of missed the window to do some of the bigger cleanup items, less big than the than the blackberries, but bigger than the just sweeping up things in the bottom. And oh my goodness, hold on. Okay, that was Lupin, who decided to, right in front of my face, be a pain in the booty and doing his claws on the furniture. So anyway, he just needed somebody to snap at him, and he took off running. So we're good until he gets bold and does it again. Anyway, the stuff that is there, we have some things that we need to clean up. It's just kind of leaf debris, a needle, pine needles that have fallen, that sort of thing, to get down to kind of the bare ground. But the downside is that's going to turn that area kind of into a muddy mess. So we're going to have to kind of balance what we plan to do back there with what we are able to do weather related, what we're able to do time wise, and things like that. The other downside, of course, is now that the blackberries aren't there, we are still going to get some sun, some warmth, things like that in this fall time. So we're going to have to keep an eye on what decides to start growing, whether it's blackberries or some other kind of weeds or just whatever comes up. So that is also a concern, making sure that the work that we've done doesn't get, eaten up by something else or just the blackberries trying to come back. So things back there are not at all complete. We are essentially now in phase 2 of the yard cleanup, but that's probably going to be fairly slow. The plan was, and we'll stick to it as best as we can, is to create zones back there. And then the steps would be, clear out the leaf litter as best as possible, so that we've got some bare-ish ground. Find where the remainders of the blackberries are, because those did not get dug up or anything. They still have their roots and some stems. Apply some kind of chemical. We do have Crossbow, and that has been good for us previously, but we want to do it directly onto the plants instead of doing some kind of spray, because that stuff is very toxic and we do not want it in the soil. We do not want it to affect some of the fruit or food bearing plants or any other plants that it might hurt while we're trying to just attack the blackberries. So do that, and then get cardboard to put over top of that after the stuff has been applied, and then wood chips on top of that. Now, they do have chip drop that we could conceivably utilize, because we don't have really any wood chips available unless and until we get a wood chipper, and then we can create some ourselves. I don't know that we would be able to create the full volume that we would actually need, but at least it would be something. We'd be making wood chips, but also getting rid of some of the debris and stuff that's in the area. But chip drop tends to be fairly chaotic. You don't necessarily get to choose when they're going to drop. I think they give you like maybe a day's notice. They'll tell you that they'll be dropping the next day. I'm not 100% sure because we've never used it. You can't fully control what you actually get in the chip drop. I have had friends that have utilized it and mentioned that they must have been doing, cleanup somewhere, because there were like chip packets, little pieces of plastic, things that weren't just chips, wood chips in the pile. So, that's something of concern. But the biggest concern that I would have is they just come in, they drop the chips in, it's can be a huge load, and then they take off, and you need to be in a position to deal with them. And especially if they drop them in your driveway, which is probably where we would have them do it, we would need to have the time and be able to transfer them somewhere else, especially if it is anywhere near a day that Mr. M is working, or I might need to be able to get out of the driveway to do an errand or something like that. So it's an option. It's not ideal, but it's possible. We have determined, now that we can get back there and take a look at things, that there's at least one tree that we probably need to get an arborist out to look at in particular, because it had ivy crawling up it, and we're not sure for how long. And the bark on there, it looks a little suspect. And so I'm concerned that either the ivy itself did something to promote, rotting or something like that, or maybe some bugs got up in there as part of, being protected by the ivy and have done stuff. It's possible that now that the ivy has been removed, that it might repair itself, but I would like us to be prepared and to kind of know what to expect. And if there is damage, what the extent is, because it is a very, very tall tree. It's not, tiny around either, but it's definitely extremely tall. And if there were to be some weakness point, I would be concerned, considering some of the ice storms and wind storms that we have. So, just from a safety standpoint, we'd like to have somebody come in and look. And then, of course, if you saw, we definitely need some trimming done on those trees in the way back as well. So that option could be a source of chips for us. However, the timing for something like that, I don't know where or when we would be able to fit it in. We have so many other long-term goal things that we need to do. So, though that might be an option, I'm just not sure when we'd be able to get to that being a reality. Okay. We have started to wind down the garden. We pulled out the cornichons, so the cucumbers. You're supposed to typically pick them when they're fairly small. These things, I love them. They are now my new favorite pickle, or cucumber, because they make such great pickles. We planted 3 vines, or 3 plants. They grew just fine. They didn't like overwhelm the garden arch, so I don't know if that was an issue of maybe not quite enough nutrients or something else, or if that's just the nature of that particular variety. But I found that these were like the perfect option, because you could pick them when they were young and get them when they were really small. So you have plenty of smaller sized cucumbers to pickle, because that's what we were mostly using them for. Or you could let them get bigger, and they would get to a decent size, and we would use that for bigger sized pickles, or we would use it just for cucumbers to cut up into salads and whatever. The production rate was very reasonable for us, even with 3 plants. We didn't get overwhelmed with how many were available at any one time, or had gotten to a size that we preferred. Now, that isn't to say we didn't end up with a refrigerator drawer full of cucumbers. We did, but that was more of a timing thing, because these were coming in August, when it was extremely hot. So we didn't really want to be constantly firing up the stove to do pickling and canning. So we would let them kind of mass in the refrigerator, and then on a particular day we'd work through them all. But the cadence worked really, really well for us. The quality seemed to be just fine. They seemed to grow great. It worked out lovely. So we probably won't do pickles next year, because we are in a good place as far as how many we did this year. But the next year that we do them, I'm absolutely going to do the cornichons again. It is now my new favorite variety to use for pickling purposes. We did the muskmelon. We have since pulled that out. Not a huge fan, but they were okay. I am glad that we did them this year. We did them in the raised bed, so there was more room for them. The previous year we did them in a container, and they did all right, less well than they did this year, and the melons themselves were pretty small. We were able to get melons that were, roughly about this size, which is what they mentioned, 4 to 5 inches in diameter. So they grew to the size that they needed to. We got them to ripen the way they needed to. The taste was okay. It was fine. Nothing about it wowed us. So, and it was a little bit more of an experiment than anything else. So we're probably not going to do those again. The zucchini we have gotten out of the garden as well. We have a million zucchinis. Oh my goodness, we have so many bags of chopped up zucchini and that's basically how we processed them. Was we took them, we chopped them up, put them on cookie sheets, put them in the freezer so that they could kind of like flash freeze or whatever. I don't know if that's technically flash freezing, but so that they could freeze, and then we scraped them off, put them in bags, and vacuum sealed them. So we have a whole bunch of those in the freezer. We have some cats that are apparently fighting right now. And we have some zucchini that we did shred so that we can do like zucchini bread or zucchini cookies and stuff like that later in the winter and early spring. And I already made some zucchini. Well, I made zucchini bread muffin type things. And we still have, I think, 8 or 10 zucchinis just that are whole that we need to use. We're probably going to break them down again in the same manner that I mentioned, but at least some of them we're going to try and make fried zucchini strips or something like that. I don't know. It's something Mr. M was interested in doing, and so I was like, okay, yeah, let's give it a go. I need to see what's going on, so I will be right back. Okay, I have given them a talking to. We will see if they listen. The biggest issue is obviously I don't want them fighting just in general, but I also don't want the dogs to hear it and get all riled up as well, because that will happen, and it'll just be a cacophony of meowing and barking for who knows how long. Anyway, so that's the zucchini. Let's see, what else we took out the onions probably in like July, late July, early August. We didn't get a ton. We didn't plant a ton. I would say maybe we have 20 onions possibly. They have been on our back patio table this entire summer. Now that we're getting into fall and the cooler, wetter weather, we need to figure out what the heck we're going to do with them so that they stay in a good dried condition and don't start molding or something like that before we can use them. So we haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do with that because we don't have a great place where we can put them where it'll stay cool and dry at this point. So that's a to-do. Let's see, what else? Oh, our bean patch did fantastic. It did phenomenal. We had green beans, purple beans, golden beans. They produced wonderfully. We have so many beans. And what we did was, besides just, cooking them freshly for a dinner, we took the vast majority of them, got them washed, we clipped the ends off, and we like smaller pieces of beans instead of like keeping them whole. So we then would cut them either in half or in thirds, and we, what is it called? Parboil? Blanched them. We blanched them. I believe that it's called blanching. We blanched them, cooked them for like 5 minutes at a boil, and then put them into an ice bath. We got them dried off, put them in bags, vacuum sealed, into the freezer they went. We have tried some of the ones that have gone through that process and have been frozen for at least a few weeks. And when Mr. M cooked them up, the texture was great, the flavor was great. So we feel like we handled those well from the preserving side of things. And so we have no reason to expect that the ones that we've done, throughout the harvesting time frame would be any different. That said, the ones that we picked absolutely last had definitely been on the plant a little long. So they might be a little starchier. They might be a little harder, a little tougher. So we'll see if maybe the process of doing all that and then being in the freezer might help soften them a little bit. The ones that we've tried were not mushy or anything, so I don't know what kind of effect it might have. But as long as they taste good and they're not, a problem to eat, we'll be perfectly happy. And Mr. M does not tend to get very, effusive or have too much commentary about the garden, things in it. Even the things that he's interested in that are in the garden, like the not the cauliflower, the cabbage and the peppers, but he made a point to say we absolutely need to do the beans again next year. And he has never said we need to do X next year. So he really is very pleased about those as well. So we are going to be doing those next year. We do still have peppers. Those are all Mr. M's stuff that he handles. So I don't know if his plan is to keep them going for another week or 2 or 3, but it is definitely getting colder, so it's going to be affecting their growth. We did have the opportunity to pick a large number of the Jimmy Nardellos, which is a sweet pepper, and he dried those and ground them up, and we made our own paprika. I don't remember if we still have that particular variety in the raised beds or if he pulled those out already, but he still has jalapeno, he still has sugar rush peach, he still has bajios, and I think there's still, oh golly, what is that other one? He still has one other one that I can't remember. So he'll be making decisions on that. We still have tomatoes in there. I think this weekend, the weekend that I am filming this, not necessarily the weekend that you guys will be seeing this, we are going to harvest all of the remaining ripe tomatoes, and then we're going to pull the plants out. We had so many tomatoes in our freezer from last year that the vast majority of any tomato processing that we did was of last year's stuff. And what we did this year, we did not can any of them. We didn't roast any of them, which we have done in the past. I think we have like 20 pints of tomato sauce already from last year. But we took them, we got all the goobers off of them, the stems or the stems and whatever, and then we just chucked them into a blender, blended it up smooth. In some cases we put some garlic in there, and blended it all together, and then we just poured them into Ziploc bags, laid them flat, put them in the freezer. So they're still in a fairly untouched state, just already liquefied. But the boon is, because we laid them flat, they do not take up nearly as much space in the freezer. And our thought is we can just grab one of those bags if we're going to do a pasta or something that needs, tomato type stuff added, and we can cook it down, get it to the state that it needs to be, fresh and in the moment, rather than pulling out a jar that's already been pre-prepared for that particular usage. We will see how well that goes. If that ends up being the boon and shortcut that we are hoping it will be or not, I can't say. We can, and I think depending on how much of a volume I am able to get from the remaining tomato plants and what is ripe and ready to go, I think we might take those, get them prepared, and we might roast those and then blend them up and put them into the bags, and just note that those ones have been roasted, just to see how well does that process work? Is it even more of a pain, or is it worth making that effort? I'm trying to think what else. We did plant some more cabbage, and it has germinated and it started growing. I'm hoping that it's going to do well. It's gotten colder, so I don't know if it's had enough time, or it will have enough time at high enough temperatures for it to actually mature in the way we want it to. Similarly, we did some bok choy, and we did some lettuces. So those are going to be in kind of the same situation, hoping that we get them to a point where they will, grow and thrive before really cold temperatures come in. They are cool loving plants, but that transition from summer through fall to winter, I feel like that change may happen a little bit more rapidly than the spring to summer heat. So we'll have to kind of keep an eye on that and see how things go. But having some nice fresh lettuce would be wonderful. And of course, Mr. M will enjoy being able to make some more sauerkraut and things like that. And I think that covers everything for the garden. We got our first few peaches that we were actually able to harvest. We had far more peaches on the tree than we ever have before, but not all of them made it to maturity. We were able to salvage a few and be able to eat them, and they tasted good. It's just some got knocked to the ground by squirrels and other critters, and so we didn't get to fully enjoy them. We also had the largest number of nectarines on our trees, which was more than 2, which is how many we've had in the past. Those ones actually got to ripen far more than the peaches did, but I feel like they didn't have quite as much time as they needed, but I was really concerned that, again, the critters would get to them. So we did pull some of those off early. Again, Mr. M, he said we need to protect the nectarine tree. So that is high praise from him. He really enjoyed the taste of the nectarines. I did as well. I do prefer nectarines to peaches. So I'm excited because this is really kind of the first year that we've seen anything of volume on either one of those. So I'm hoping that next year we will be building on that. Something that we absolutely do not need any more of, but just the nature of what is to come, because those trees have gotten quite robust, is plums. We have so many plums in our freezers, so many. And Mr. M has done 3 batches of wine. He has them still kind of in process, which uses surprisingly fewer plums than I was thinking. It's like 5 pounds each for each batch. He's made a plum liqueur. We've made plum tarts, or little pie things. I've made a plum crumble. I also have made, what did we do? 9 half pints of plum jam. So we've done a fair number of plum things, but we have such an abundance. If you have any plum related recipes that you absolutely love, please share them, because we could certainly use some more ideas on how to use what we have. I do plan on trying a recipe I found for a plum, I think they called it a plum infused vinegar. I don't remember the details, other than I think you crush the plums a little bit, and then you just put them to steep in some apple cider vinegar, and then once it's done its thing for, I think it's a month maybe, you then strain it and put what's left, the actual liquid, in a bottle, and keep it in a cold or cool, dark place until you're ready to use it. I also want to do a plum sauce, which basically will just be cooking the plums down to a consistency that's just shy of kind of that jamming stage, so that it stays liquid, kind of a viscous liquid. We will take those and probably put them into cube trays, freeze it, and then just put the cubes in bags so that we can take out how much we need for a particular recipe or particular usage. Yeah, they're acting up again. That is Cece and Lupin at this point that are being pains in my neck. So those are a couple, but we still have tons. We have elderberries. We have blueberries at the yin yang. We have just a tiny bit of strawberries left. We have some raspberries. So there's a lot of opportunity for fruit-based things for us to do, that we're going to have to work through what we have. We have done 3 half pints of strawberry jam. I don't think I have enough to do anything else that's just straight strawberry, so we might have to do a mixture. And I've done 16 half pints of Asian pear blueberry jam. So we've got quite a bit of jam, so finding something else to do would be nice. We can always fall back on more jam, of course. All right, so that is the garden. I think that's it. So now that I've spoken for 30 minutes already about non-financial stuff, let's look at the numbers and see where we ended in September. So I'm gonna cover this because considering the length of this video already, I think we're gonna save our investing update, like with the actual numbers of where our portfolios and everything are, for another video. All right, so as of the end of September, our emergency fund is now at $5,815.12. That is fantastic because we are less than $200 away from the goal for level 2 of the emergency fund. What does that mean? That means once we hit that $6,000 mark, we have effectively saved 1 month's worth of expenses. Wonderful. Just 11 more to go. But no, I'm really, really pleased that we are so close, especially since the vast majority of the progress we've made has been due to the priority goal process at the end of the pay period, because we actually only have $25 per month in our budget that goes to the emergency fund. It is primarily coming from the end of the month or end of the pay period monies, and that means we are sticking to our budget, we are not letting any scope creep or lifestyle creep come in and diminish the discretionary money that we have, which means we have more to go to the emergency fund to help fund the emergency fund. So that is a motivator that keeps us kind of honest and on track, because if we are spending outside of the budget and willy-nilly, then what we have available to fund the things that we consider to be important outside of our standard budget piece are going to be diminished as well, and we're not going to be able to meet those goals nearly as quickly as we'd like. Okay, speaking of those goals, long-term goals. Okay, so the cost of that cleanup for the back area ended up being $1,925, which dropped what our total long-term goal amount was down to $4,325. We do have a few things that have bubbled to the surface as being higher priority than some others. First and foremost is a new refrigerator. I spoke about that a little bit in another video, as well as a wood chipper. Now then, I can say as of the time of making this video, which is different from when I wrote all these numbers down, we have found a refrigerator. We have ordered it. It is going to be delivered in December. So that is handled. We are in a good position with that, because just like having budgeted technically $2,500 for the yard cleanup, and that dollar amount actually coming in under, we had anticipated that we were going to be paying somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. So, $2,000 being the high end, we did come in less than that. So we actually have a little bit more than we were thinking we would have in the long-term goals once those two items were taken out. Now, because of the things that I spoke about, the concerns, weather-wise, etc., in that back area, I don't know if we are going to pursue a wood chipper at this time. We had kind of budgeted roughly $600 to $900 for that, $600 to $800. So there's one that we have been looking at. It's a Champion, and I think when we went to Home Depot, it was like roughly $750. Maybe it was $799. I can't remember exactly, but it could, depending on how pricing stays right now, we may kind of take that off the table and look at it again later. So removing up to $800 or $900 from the total may not be a thing at the moment. Now, if there is some kind of amazing sale, Black Friday's coming up, where it's less than what we saw at the store just recently, then we might want to jump on that to take advantage of the deal. But I think that is going to shift to being a little less of a priority just because of the weather and what we would actually be able to do with it right now. So bottom line is, if we were to buy everything we were talking about at the highest price level, we were expecting to have roughly $1,500 left in the long-term goals. We are sitting at having about $1,800 if you take out the wood chipper money. Obviously more if we do not. So that will be the seed money. What are you guys whining about? Loopy, what's going on? Are you trying to have a fight again? Okay. Anyway, we are going to be pursuing our next true long-term goal, which is going to be the carport. Whether it's a fix or a replace, that we don't know yet. We are going to need to get an expert or a few in to kind of assess what the condition our current one is, whether it makes sense to try and shore it up or whatever needs to be done, or if we are better off taking it down and building something new. Either way, the roof will need to be fixed. It is in terrible condition. It is splintering. There are sheets that are gone, so we do not have full, protective coverage as it is. So no matter what, that piece of things is going to have to be handled. I have to imagine that doing a fix method or the fix option would be cheaper than fully replacing. So regardless of where we go, I have to assume, because I am not an expert or anything, that we're probably going to be looking at a few $1,000s for the project at minimum. So there will be savings that we are going to have to do no matter what, regardless of which way we decide to go to get up to that level, because we are no longer at this 4325. Okay, so that's the long-term goal. After that, maybe air conditioner, maybe something else. It'll just kind of depend on, in the moment, what the status of things are once we get to a point where we can do the carport redo or replacement. So next thing we have is mortgage, and as of the end of the September month, we are at $223,064.09, which is fantastic. We are so close to being under yet another $1,000 mark. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking at our amortization chart, the 10/1/2025 line item showed the principal as being $242,827.47. So that's a roughly $20,000 difference there. And when I looked to match up where in the chart was closer to our actual number, I came across $223,165.93, so roughly $100 more than where we actually are, and that was October 1st of 2028. So we have essentially reduced our mortgage time frame for paying it off by 3 years. And that is upheld by the administrators, their app that they have, they can show you, how much interest you've paid off, how many, extra payments that you've made, and all of that. And according to the website, we have saved $22,827.50 in interest and have reduced our payoff timeline by 36 payments, which is the equivalent of 3 years. So that is such a good feeling, And we're just going to keep the momentum and keep pushing and work to continue to bring that down. Now, one thing that I was curious about, and it's a thought I've had before, but I'd never really kind of delved into it too deeply, but I'm glad I did this time. I had the thought, okay, at what point is the payment that we make normally, is that money going to have more go towards the principal than is currently going to the interest? Because once we hit that threshold, that's just going to continue, on down the line and become more and more and more. And it turns out that the payment that we made September 1st was the first time that the majority of our payment went to the principal versus the interest. We paid $3.31 more to principal than to interest during that payment. And then when I looked at the October 1st payment that we made, that difference was even bigger. It was $11.39. So at every month going forward, that gap should widen, and we'll be putting more towards principal and less towards interest. So even if we stop all of the extra payments that we're making, we will slowly and incrementally be making that gap bigger, and we'll be paying down the loan faster. Of course, we're not going to stop because we want to keep this momentum, but that was almost as exciting as getting down below the $225,000 mark, just because I don't know, it feels like it's a very momentous kind of point in time. I don't think that there's any way or reason that it should get reversed where it goes back to, oh, nope, more is going to interest than to principal. Maybe if we were to miss a payment, I'm not sure, but it feels like one of those first steps of the snowball rolling, and it's just going to roll faster and faster and faster and faster now that it's gotten started. So I'm very excited about that. And then the last piece is the investing. We introduced investing in August. So August and September, we have now each contributed $250 per month. So it's $125 for each pay period for each of us, or a total of $500 per month of investing money that's in our budget to go towards our Roth IRAs. In addition to that, 15% of our discretionary funds, so the ones that are paying for these priority goals at the end of each pay period, is also being split between the two of us, and then is going towards our Roth IRAs. I always want to say 401ks, but that is not correct. So we've got 2 months under our belt with that process in place. It seems to be going pretty well. The budgeted $250 process, that is all automated. So we have it on a set it and forget it kind of mode. The discretionary piece we do have to handle manually, so that's a little bit more effort that we have to take, but we are happy to do so because we really want to do our best to make sure that our situation when we are finally ready to retire is going to allow us to be able to retire. We do not want to have to work in retirement, Whether that is a goal we're going to be able to achieve remains to be seen. We want to do everything we can to avoid some of the unfortunate and terrible things that we hear a lot of our seniors these days dealing with. I cannot imagine the worry and just the devastation, the stress of having to choose, do I take these medications, buy these medications, or do I buy food? Do I pay this property tax, or maybe they're still paying rent, or they're paying a mortgage? Do I pay those instead of getting my medications? Talking about not being, and this was before all of the stuff that's happening now, where prices are just through the roof. People that were on like Social Security, fixed incomes, all of that were definitely feeling the squeeze. And it's just terrible. After working so hard for so long, the goal and the dream is to finally be able to just breathe and be. And so many people, it just didn't turn out that way for them. So we want to do whatever we can to try and avoid those same pitfalls, and hopefully life is kind to us and doesn't throw things at us that derails us too far. Because, I'm certain that in some cases people probably made some poor financial decisions and things like that, but other things can happen too. You could have a very terrible health scare, and with the cost of health and medical care these days in the United States, that can devastate you. So something as simple as that. But I don't know. I don't want to get onto a rant. I don't want to ramble too much more. So I'm going to cut myself off there. I know you guys say that you don't mind the longer videos, but I do want to be a little bit cognizant of the time that I am spending and things like that. So we will leave it there and leave it at, we want to do everything that's in our power now when we can build something useful and helpful over the time that we do have until we are at a retirement age, as much as possible. We want to use the time that we have as wisely as we can and to our best abilities. So on that note, we will talk more about what our actual investment portfolio looks like, what the entities we are investing in, what kind of dollar amounts they have as a snapshot as of the 1st of October. And I will do that in a separate video because we are pushing 50 minutes at this point. So thank you so much for listening, for coming back and seeing where things stand. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, please note those down below. Don't miss me with those fruit recipes, whether it's plum or something else. Like I said, we got blackberries, we got strawberries, we got raspberries, we got elderberries. So we are happy to empty our freezer and try some new delicious things. So please share those. If you have any specific questions about like the investing side of things, I'm happy to take a look at them. Please keep in mind, we are not experts. We are novices, amateurs at best. We are not unfamiliar or have never done any investing before. We do have 401ks, so we have some experience, but we are obviously didn't go to school for any of that, so we are not experts, and there's certainly some things that I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to give suggestions about, or even necessarily offering my opinion on, or anything like that. But please throw your questions out, and the worst that'll happen is I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not sure." You're probably gonna need to get an expert on that one. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I do hope we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.